A charter school can be a great option when it comes to educating the next generation, but only if a capable and committed group of people come together to make it happen. Board membership alone is a major responsibility, one not to be taken lightly. Naturally, there are some safeguards in place to make sure your local school stays running in a way that's both effective and compliant. With that in mind, let's talk about your legal responsibilities. The goal of any school is to provide a group of students with the best education possible. While charter schools can be a strong option for accomplishing this, they also come with their very own set of legal responsibilities. Remember, the overarching goal is to provide an outstanding education for the students and families who put their faith in it. As a board member, it's your job to stay vigilant so that your school can fulfill its mission without tripping on any legal red tape. It's the board's responsibility to ensure your school has strategic plans to meet or exceed the academic and financial goals set out in your charter. Any effective charter board has the ability to govern in a way that stays true to the school's original vision and mission, which is defined in the school's charter agreement. These missions can certainly vary. For example, many charters choose to focus on science and mathematics, while others place a special emphasis on literature and writing. Some charters are even more narrowly focused, with curriculums directed at performing arts or music, while others focus on career tech education. For instance, Palouse Prairie Charter School, located in Moscow, Idaho, offers their students various opportunities to get outdoors and explore Idaho, along with their regular curriculum, of course. And across the country, there are countless examples of other charter schools that were founded with the goal of giving their students a unique experience, one that couldn't really be provided in a district school.
The board is the one that's ultimately responsible for making sure that the mission and vision of the school is being supported and maintained. All of that big picture stuff falls on the shoulders of the board.
In other words, you give the administration a goal. Then, you check in periodically to make sure their methods are achieving that goal. Because of this responsibility, board composition is absolutely key. Later on in the series, we'll be discussing exactly what factors should be taken into consideration when building a board. But for now, it's important to note that any effective board has a firm understanding of their school's mission and is ready to work hard to execute that mission in tangible ways.
It's a real privilege to be a board member for a public charter school because you get to oversee the operations of the school and be a steward of taxpayer dollars. And also you get to hear from members of the community and parents about what they would like to see at the school. And then as a board member, you get to be a decision maker in how you hear and then implement those ideas.
It's important for you to make sure you have a clear understanding of that original mission as a board member. If you do, many seemingly tough decisions will at least become clearer, if not always easier.
The most important document that a board member should focus on is their charter agreement with the state. It is important for every board member to become familiar with it and in some respects have it as a reference document, both in terms of guiding principles for the role the board is supposed to play and also in terms of specific roadmap of what the board's responsibilities are in specific contexts.
Running any kind of business means taking on a certain element of risk, and a charter school is no exception. That being said, many of the common legal risks faced by charter schools are totally avoidable and can be mitigated by a board that understands their own legal responsibilities. First off, as we mentioned earlier, do the homework. A board member who's knowledgeable about the ins and outs of their own school is one who's much less likely to make a move that gets their school or board into legal troubles.
Every board member carries a fiduciary duty to the school. And that means that every board member must act in the best interest of the school at all times. In a practical sense, most people who are going to be volunteering as a board member will be doing that naturally, but it's important to recognize there's a legal obligation and component to that. So it's very useful to get regular board training on what fiduciary duty includes and how that can be applied to your specific school and school culture and governance culture.
I think you got to bring a degree of seriousness and motivation to it. And I mean, you're in a leadership position, and a leadership position is going to entail some risk.
Another way to avoid one of the most common, recurring legal pitfalls faced by charter schools is to pay close attention to the state-set regulations regarding meeting logistics. Like we mentioned earlier, charter schools run predominantly on the taxpayer's dime, meaning those in charge have an obligation to let the taxpayer stay up to speed on the way their money is being spent. Thankfully, there isn't much guesswork to be done in order to make this happen.
So making sure that there is a genuine and authentic opportunity for parent and community engagement is critical, and that is the intent behind the open meetings laws.
There are some pretty clear guidelines for these open meetings. For instance, clear and detailed notes need to be kept for every meeting, what subjects were covered and what was said about them. Beyond that, your board is required to clearly advertise the location and time of the next meeting with plenty of notice for everyone. This open meeting law is an important one to remember because it's one that's taken very seriously by the state. The public has a right to witness every turn of the decision-making process. That means every piece of charter school business needs to be advertised. So there's no meeting for coffee to discuss next week's meeting, and no talking budget changes on the golf course. Doing so could actually get your board in some deep legal trouble. This next tip is one that can often be hard for newer board members to wrap their heads around. Before making any decision that has less than clear implications or potential for serious legal ramifications, don't be afraid to get an attorney involved. Spending a few occasional dollars on quality, preemptive legal counsel can actually save your board from major trouble down the line.
From my perspective, when issues come up, call your lawyer or whoever your consultant is. If you've got a financial consultant, if you've got an issue, call them right away. Call your auditor and say, how should we handle this?
It's relatively common and totally understandable for the average person to bristle at the idea of lawyering up. Usually in everyday life, there isn't much need for the upstanding citizen to spend time worrying about legal trouble. But it's vital to remember, charter school board membership is a job with more gravity than the average volunteer position. There's potential for huge positive change when done right, as well as serious negative ramifications when taken lightly. At the same time, don't let the responsibility keep you up at night. As long as a board is willing to dot their I's and cross their T's, attention can stay focused where it belongs in the first place, on the quality education of the students. Another important aspect of your role as a board member is the periodic evaluation of the school leader. Usually, this is done by issuing evaluation forms to the members of the board and discussing the results once they're compiled. It is a process that can be difficult and sometimes even uncomfortable, considering the possibility that some of the board members might have a personal relationship with the leader. So, to avoid any tension or adversarial feelings, these evaluations should be regular and based on criteria that have been preemptively accepted by both parties.
In order to trust the division of governance and operations, the board, which is tasked with governance, should really hire somebody who it trusts can run the operations, and then should have a performance management system in place to make sure that that school leader is doing what's expected.
The whole reason these evaluations exist is to maintain the right balance of power between a school's governance and management. Really, it's the same idea behind the balance of power in the branches of government. If everybody in charge is able to keep tabs on those around them, there's a much smaller risk of anything happening to negatively affect the performance of the school.
So a board's role and responsibility is governance. The CEO or the highest staff member, their responsibility is management. So governance is things like setting policy, hiring the CEO and creating an evaluation framework, creating a support framework for that person. It's making the big decisions that allow the CEO to manage the organization.
When looked at as a whole, the list of legal responsibilities you're tasked with as a board member can seem daunting, but the truth is, there's not too much to worry about, as long as you stay focused on the mission of the school and consult the right people or materials before making a move you're unsure about.
Ultimately, I think what makes a great board member is someone who realizes that it's about the kids. You have to put the kids first. Sometimes that means pouring all sorts of resources and celebrating success and, just a lot of celebration. And sometimes that means you have to make a hard decision, whether it's the termination of a school leader or, making budget cuts or things that don't feel great. And if you can do that and understand that your job is to make decisions at the policy level and lead the implementation to the school leadership, those are the two components that I think make a great board member.
In this episode, we went over some of the legal details involved with your service on a charter board, what you're responsible for, and how to be most helpful to those around you by keeping track of their responsibilities. But when all is said and done, the requirements are all there for a specific purpose: to ensure your school is fulfilling its mission to the best of its abilities and providing value for its students.